Welcome, Cam. Welcome to the Growth Addicts Podcast. I am almost giddy because we're in a studio today, which we've just been chatting about. I have never done this in a studio before. I usually record from my dining room, occasionally with the kids running around. But you know what? I'm not going to do that again because that's a nightmare. So yes, we're in the Glasgow podcast studio today. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
And of course, we met at Colleen's. I'm going to give Colleen a shout out.
Yes,
we
definitely.
met at Colleen's retreat day, Flow Yoga and Wellness. Funny story, I first met Cam, I don't know if you actually remember this, but everyone at the retreat day was kind of in the kitchen, socialising, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So I had to find a little room myself, and Cam was sitting there doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly that.
And we got chatting. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to experience one of your meditations at Colleen's retreat, which was fantastic. I've dipped in and out of meditation,
right, yeah.
Totally different
Common
story.
typo.
Over the years, just on apps and things, kind of popular app, I won't name it, rhymes with lead space.
Of course, yeah.
Dipped in and out of that. But by no means it's been a regular practice, so I'm pretty fascinated. And what I experienced that day with you was very, very cool.
Amazing.
But before we kick off today, Cam, I do want to ask how your health is. How is your back? I've introduced your story and how you found meditation, and how are you now? How's your back?
Very good, very good. So it was a big injury I obviously had a couple of years ago. It'll be 10 years ago next month. In a month's time, to the day. Look, I still have injuries. I still have dramas and issues with it from time to time. I'd probably say every 6 months I probably get like a little bit of a flare up where it kind of causes me to kind of either, be out of action for a couple of days. But 10 years down the track, I'm very much more. I can navigate it a lot better. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Good. So we know that then you didn't have the stereotypical background of finding meditation from the story that you shared with me on Colleen's retreat day, which was I was glad to hear. Thank you so much for being so honest. It's refreshing to hear that honest, very vulnerable story as well. So it makes a lot of sense how you came across meditation, because you were pretty desperate by the sounds of it, and you were desperate to try something that worked. And you were the guy that sat at the back door just in case this didn't work out. I'm out of here. I'm off.
It's exactly that.
Yep. But what I'm really curious about, and I'm sure our listeners will be as well, we're all small business owners, as are you. How did that come from something so out there, so different for you to try, to now your business?
Yeah.
Please tell us how that happened.
It was a big change. I think initially when I kind of learned to meditate, I came to it, you're exactly right, I was desperate. I was in a really dark place within it. And my first ever meditation class, I came across meditation on Google. I had a very stereotypical kind of view of meditation, bald head, orange robes. And my first kind of class, it literally was that. It was a Buddhist monk, and she had a bald head, saffron robes. And as I came in, she offered me a herbal tea and some homemade biscuits. And I was kind of a bit like, this is definitely not my kind of crowd. And
you're looking for the milk and sugar for your tea?
Yeah, exactly. And I literally sat in the back corner ready to make an exit, when the meditation class started. And however long that was, 20 minutes later, when I opened my eyes for the first time in a very, very long time, I was completely comfortable within my own skin, which was a big contrast for me. And my family instantly noticed the difference in me as soon as I went home. And I continued meditating daily for a couple of weeks, not telling anybody I was doing it. And it was around that sort of 3-week mark later where guys in the building site and football teammates who I got irritated by so easily, and they knew that they weren't irritating me and I wasn't reacting, and they could see that difference. And I remember it very clearly. One of my bosses on one of the building sites, Jason, who irritated me to so much, and he knew it. He just push my buttons, and he was trying so hard and wasn't getting a reaction. He came up to me and he just went, tapped me on the shoulder away from everybody, and he went, "Mate, what are you doing at the moment? You've got a big smile on your face and an extra spring in your step. You are not getting triggered at anything." I'm actually getting goosebumps even just talking about that, because it was a big moment. And I was kind of like, wait, why is he asking me this? And he goes, "Mate, whatever you're doing at the moment, just keep doing it, because it is showing." Wow. And that hit me, and I was like, wow, and as I said, he irritated the life out of me.
And this was just after your first class, sorry?
This was about 3 weeks after.
Right, okay.
So I was practicing regularly by myself, and I was dropping into a class each week within that. So to kind of like answer your question, how it became a business, I was around that sort of 3-week mark when he said that to me, and I was like, wait, why do more people not know about meditation? And like being on building sites, it's a very, it's a very masculine kind of space, there's a lot of males, and on building sites, guys used to come into work all the time and be like complaining about like their home life and, the stresses and stuff like that. And everyone was so stressed and so angry and so irritable and kind of reactive. And I was kind of like, all these guys could do with meditation, all of these guys here, But it became a business not until a couple years later. I ended up backpacking around the world, dabbling in courses and classes and retreats and stuff like that. At some point, I came across Vedic meditation, which is a style I specialize in teaching now. And it was probably around that sort of mark where I'd kind of come into Vedic meditation. I was like, this actually works really well for me, and I could see so many of my friends who could do with meditation.
You must see it in everyone now.
Oh, all the time, yeah, every day. I have to tell myself to go, don't say the M word when I go into a public space. But I could see it, everybody could do with meditation, but their avenue there wasn't as easy because most of the meditation teachers around the world, and the most stereotypical meditation teacher is that one who kind of has a very soft language and kind of wears the hippie pants and is all kind of and that's not what people can connect to, and they kind of use what I always say is flowery and fluffy language, which maybe does connect to some people, but it wasn't connecting to my crowd. And I thought, why don't I become a teacher? So I became a teacher.
So you identified your ideal client almost before you started your business.
I did.
I'm a big fan of the ideal client chat, and you've just hit the nail on the head there. You're like, wait a minute here.
There was definitely an avenue for that, but I do, when I first became a meditation teacher, there was probably a good 4-month period when I initially became a meditation teacher where I was doing the whole kind of flowery, fluffy language, and I was trying to be a meditation teacher. And there was a point within lockdown at the very beginning where I just had a day and I just went, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to be me, and I'm just going to, let's see what happens. And I remember doing a post, and I was just taking the mick and getting people's attention to get them into meditation. And I think I got a yoga mat and I strapped it around my head like a ninja, and I rolled into the front of the video screen and started and I went, right, I've got your attention, and I started talking about meditation, and it just popped, it just boomed, and I went, that was just me being me, on a day-to-day, being silly, being fun. And it took off, and I was kind of why don't I just be me more often? And then the next thing was, it just skyrocketed.
Oh gosh, is it not so much easier just being yourself?
So much easier, so much easier. In that 4-month period, I was feeling myself, talking about meditation. I was trying to, let's do it. And I was like, that's not me. That's
if
not
it doesn't
me.
feel right for you, your audience are going to pick up on that as well.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it's not going to go anywhere.
So yeah, that's how I kind of made a business out of it. And how I am who I am now as a full-time meditation teacher with thousands of students around the world.
Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank
well
you.
done.
Appreciate that.
And so how did you actually make a start? Did you make a start online? What were you offering?
Yeah. So actually, lockdown obviously affected a lot of people, but lockdown happened at a very good period for me because I actually became qualified just before lockdown, and I moved to Glasgow. I didn't know anybody in here other than a few family members. And I started teaching, got myself a little studio space over in the city centre. It was a co-working space, so I hired a room and tried to start there. And I did my first 2 classes, which had maybe 15, 20 people on it. And I was like, this is amazing. I can grow off of this. Next thing was lockdown happened. I was like, oh my God. So I went to lockdown, and obviously everybody was kind of looking for something to do online. And I just went, right, I'm just going to make all my meditation classes free. I'm just going to make everything free, and I'm just going to make everything donation based. And I got a lot of people onto the courses, and they kind of gave me either a donation. Some people obviously didn't, but everybody gave me feedback, and then I could go to the next course, and I was like, right, let's do this, right, let's do that. And I started to grow from there.
And honest feedback is just as valuable as a financial contribution, isn't it?
Huge, exactly. So that really, really helped me within lockdown, being able to teach people how to meditate within that period. And as we started to come out of lockdown, that's when it started to really kind of grow, because in the lockdown period, I got my website, I started to kind of got my booking system, and I spent day and night on that thing, trying to get that up to scratch. My social media, tried to kind of get that up to scratch, and all the things. Yep, all myself. Yeah. Obviously I got, some professionals in to kind of help me with the website and stuff like that. But majority of it, 90% of it was me. And there's stuff behind the scene that people don't see. Is like, there was periods like where I was literally falling asleep with my laptop open in bed, trying to make an arrow on my website. Silly things, do you know what I mean? But people don't see that side of it.
Yeah,
and
I've been there. Yes.
SEO. The other thing was like when I moved to Glasgow, Scotland in general, there wasn't a meditation teacher here. There wasn't a dedicated meditation teacher. Most meditation teachers were a yoga teacher and they were doing meditation classes, so it wasn't their primary offering. So I seen this kind of wide open market and I was like, I need to kind of get into that. And it just grew and grew and grew, and it's forever growing. So
Wow.
yeah.
Fantastic, honestly, love that story. And so now you're doing face-to-face classes now then. You got a studio that you do that from then, a dedicated sort of space?
So I've been in my studio now for 2.5 years. So as we kind of came out of like full lockdown, and everything was really kind of going back to normal. We'd passed the kind of like the in between stage. That's when I dedicated myself to getting like my own studio that I could kind of decorate, because the studio space I had in the city centre, as I said, was a co-working space. So it was kind of come in and it was like, a funny coloured carpet and, and like decor on the walls that wasn't me. Do you know what I mean? So I needed something that reflected me. So I got my studio and that just boomed, because then I could move away from primarily Zoom and do more in-person stuff. I started doing day retreats. I started doing like, separate events and stuff like that. I started going into gym spaces and wellbeing communities and offering meditation classes. And that really helped me kind of like accelerate from there. So yeah, I've got my own studio now. I've got my own app as well, which I have my community. It came out last week. So
and are you okay after that?
We talk about website headaches. That's like another world.
I can imagine. Not something I ventured into, but I can only imagine how time consuming and mind consuming.
So that was. There's it's a whole story, the whole podcast probably on that conversation, but so it's kind of grown. It's grown and grown and grown. So I've got my own studio space. I do retreats around Scotland as well, and
Excellent. And as you see, you go to corporate spaces as well, workplaces.
Yes, I do.
So that must be really bringing a lot to the table there.
Definitely.
And then do you find students then who weren't students then become students from meeting you there?
Exactly
I can imagine.
Exactly that. So the corporate stuff was something I started to work on probably about this time last year. Started to kind of put the foundations in for that, and I'm really seeing the fruits of that now. And especially in the last probably 4 months, that's really kind of taken off. So initially, like when you start something like that offering, I thought to myself like, right, I think I'm ready to start offering corporates more with more intention and in the right ways. And it gets me in front of like more people, which gets me, as you say, more students for myself, because most people kind of come to that and they're a bit like, stressed out. They're at work and they're just like, and then they kind of really see the benefits of it from one session. They're like, how do I do this more? I'm like, come to the studio. Right?
Yeah, I can imagine. I have to experience it with yourself, because is it 90 the headphones that you use?
Yes.
Like at one point I actually jumped because I thought you were here. The way the voice all moved around is very different from anything I've experienced before. So I can imagine anyone who's trying it once is like, definitely wouldn't mind trying that again and again and again and again. So and of course, mental health in the workspace is a hot topic at the minute. So I'm sure you're doing really good work there.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic.
It's a cool experience through the headphones and the blackout eye mask as well. And kind of going into corporate spaces. Predominantly when I go into a workspace, the boss is going to put it on. They're just like, right, you all need to come to this. And I might have say 20 people there. I've probably got like 12 people who are genuinely interested. They're like, right, I want to do some meditation. I've heard it's good, or I do meditation. You've probably got 4 or 5 who are just a bit like, you know what, I'm just here to see what it's like. And then I've got like 2 or 3 or 4 who are just like, I just want to get out of work.
And just an hour away from my desk.
Literally, and by the end of it, they're all like, wow, what was that? That was not what I was expecting. And they really start to see the benefits of it in that way.
Good. And I'm sure that's a lot to do with you as well, not just the practice. And you're sharing your story, like I say, it's a really vulnerable story. And it really helps you gain that connection before you get into that. So I'm sure it's a lot to do with you as well, not just the actual practice.
I appreciate that.
So you touched on, is it Vedic meditation that you offer? Are there different types of meditation then?
Yeah.
Quite a lot?
Totally. Yeah. Lots and lots and lots of different styles of meditation.
If, like me, people have maybe dipped into it before, what sort of meditation do you think we've likely come across before, and how is it going to be different?
So you mentioned obviously Headspace is what you've been kind of doing. Oh, you can't say that. No, you're good. So predominantly like the easiest style of meditation to kind of transfer across via an app or online and something like that is mindfulness meditation. And mindfulness means constant state of awareness. So predominantly you're probably focusing on your breath or something like this. And these are the easiest styles to transfer across. However, there is lots of different styles of meditation. I always liken it to kind of like exercising. You know, you can go to the gym and you can kind of obviously do weightlifting, running, you know, cardio. There's all sorts of different styles you can work out and exercise your body. And meditation is that, exercising for your mental space, your mind. So there's many different ways we can do that. So when it comes to Vedic meditation, it's very different to mindfulness styles. It's more of an effortless style. It's much more of a softer style. We're not trying to concentrate. We're not trying to control the mind in any way. And we use mantras, which translates to mind tool. So when a student comes to me to learn Vedic meditation, I give them their own personalized mantra. And this is purely just a little sound. They never vocalize it. They never write it down. They never share it with anybody. They always keep it internalized. And what they do when they go into their meditation with their eyes closed is they very softly and very gently repeat that to themselves with their internal voice. And it works as a mind tool to help us go from a surface level, very active point of our mind into this deeper, much more relaxed state of consciousness. And the more and more they meditate using their mantra, taking them into that deep space, they begin to build the internal association that their mantra takes them to that very comforting, still space within themselves, where it becomes the key to their practice. And once they start to kind of meditate regularly, they really start to drop into that space, and it becomes this kind of it becomes the key to their practice, as I say, and it becomes where they start to integrate that experience into their everyday life, where the subtle but substantially fundamental shifts start to happen in people's lives as a result of meditation. So yeah, that's what Vedic meditation is. Very different to what you've probably learned on Headspace or Calm or Insight Timer. So,
Cam tried that as well. And it was very different. So highly recommend everyone give it a bash. We'll talk about where we can find you later on, because I think there'll be a few thinking, I fancy that. Yeah, excellent. So you mentioned as well that you obviously hail from Australia, yes, and then you did some backpacking around Europe and you ended up in sunny Glasgow. Here you are, and you're still here, so you must be liking it.
Yes.
But starting a business in a new country where you knew very little people, handful with the sounds of it, what was that like? Because community is such a big, important part of starting a business and getting at least a few people that get it, that you can talk to. So where did you even begin with that?
It really, it was quite difficult, you know. I won't lie. It was the first year where I started just teaching family, and then I started teaching family and friends, and then it was like friends of a friend, you know what I mean? And it was always, for probably the first year, it really was just people who I had some kind of social connection to via my family. But that very quickly after that year kind of took off from there. But it really needed to kind of get out there. And I knew that as well. So it was like going to the gym and going to the community spaces and kind of talking to people, you know. I had to kind of own being a meditation teacher. I couldn't just kind of go to people, I'm a meditation teacher and that's what I do. You know, I had to kind of be like, no, I'm a meditation teacher, you know, and I can teach people this and I can do that. I could come in here, and I didn't limit myself with what I could do. Like if there was someone who was like, oh, could you do this kind of class, or can you do something for that? I was like, yep, cool, I'll do it. And I might not at that point have any kind of idea how to do that, but I'd go home and I'd be like, right, how can I make that work?
And figure it out later.
Exactly that. And everything I probably made for the first 2 years, everything I earned via teaching went straight back into the business. You know, I never spent a penny of that, because I had other jobs as a carer and working as a barista when I first moved here as well, you know, to kind of pay my, you know, my wages and stuff like that. But everything I earned then paid off the studio, and everything after that went straight back into the business. So yeah, I think that helped me quite a lot as well.
And I bet you were glad of your meditation practice at that time, if you're juggling multiple jobs and building a business, as a lot of our small business owner friends are. They're either still working full-time or working multiple part-time jobs while building their business, or got caregiving responsibilities for parents or children or whatever. It is a tough gig. So did you really tap into your own practice during that time as well?
For sure. That helped me quite a lot, do you know what I mean? As I said, there's the behind the scenes, a lot of people don't see, like, you know, the falling asleep with the laptop literally in your hand, you know, and the first thing that you do, you know, I'd wake up early some mornings before I had to leave for work to do a little bit of work, you know, and there was like my lunch breaks, like I'd be, you know, away, you know, trying to get some messages sent and stuff like that. As soon as I finish, I'd go home, I'd teach a class. Then I'd be like, right, let me do this on the website now. Let me build this on my social media. Let me do that post, you know. I was constantly doing that behind the scenes.
Quite consuming, isn't it? Like, it really
very,
is. At that
very
beginning era.
Yeah, totally. It was very consuming. And like, the meditation really kind of broke that up for me, because otherwise, if I didn't have that and I was just, you know, I would just work myself into the ground. But that kind of broke it up for me, and it helped me process where I was, and allowed me to kind of stay very composed in doing all of that and juggling all those kind of all those balls, you could kind of say. So
yeah. And even when you move away from that phase where you might be going into your business full time, you then wear a lot of hats within the small business owner. You know, we're mostly doing it all ourselves. Aside from the odd thing, you know, I think I do everything except the podcast editing. I do outsource that because I know my limits. I can't think anything else. That might be the only thing that I outsource. So, you know, I'm the photographer, I'm the writer, I'm the podcast host, I'm the cleaner, I'm the marketing chick, I'm the accountant. Oh no, I outsource my actual accounts. I do my own bookkeeping, but again, I know my limits, so I send that. I do outsource that. So small business owners are generally juggling a lot of things. They are either, whether it's they're full-time within their business, or they're building up their business. So, and I bet the biggest complaint I hear from small business owners is they don't have time. They don't have time for anything, right? They're so thinly stretched. And even when I talk a lot to them about social media marketing, that's a lot of the first thing is, where do you find the time? And so I'm all about planning and whatnot, but it's about prioritising your time. But I know, listening to this, some of them will be thinking, I don't have time to meditate. And I remember hearing a phrase, is it like, meditate for half an hour unless you're really busy, then do it for an hour. Yeah, right. So I don't know where that's hailed from. Sorry, I can't credit the person that came up with that quote, but it's very interesting, isn't it? So can I presume you've heard that before?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. I've recommended that one out a few times.
We don't have time to meditate. So getting into the small business owner head, then we know that this is something that can help. We know that taking breaks and taking time out, and sometimes you've just got to step back, and that's the best advice, is to step back. But how do you start to incorporate something like that into your life? Like, sometimes if you're going to try something like this, and I practice yoga every day, whether it's for 5 minutes or an hour every day, but sometimes I'm like, I
haven't got time for it.
And I know how good it is for me, and I know how good I feel after it, but I am thinking about the other things I could do. So
of course.
How do you begin to even start this?
Definitely, it's a very good question. Very good question. And it's something that I see every week with students. As I said, I've got thousands of students, and I've got hard proof on how this actually works for people, is because predominantly, like, I could have business-minded people, CEOs, entrepreneurs, parents who say all of that, you know, because when a student comes to me to learn meditation, I initially recommend to everybody for the first 6 weeks, and then going forward from that, twice a day, 20 minutes. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the late afternoon, early evening. And that's exactly the reaction. Eyebrows always raised, going like, what the fuck do you think I've got? Do you think I've got that time?
In the back of my mind, it's like, yes, we need 20 minutes of silence twice a day for 6 weeks. That would be incredible. Thank you. But the front of the mind's like, steady. There's a lot of things to be done in the waking hours.
Exactly. So I see like that initial reaction from students, and I'm like, commit to it. And it's generally around that sort of 3 week mark when students come back to me and they're like, what the fuck? I used to get X amount of work done in 8 hours. Now I'm actually adding more into my day, the twice a day, 20 minutes, and I'm getting X amount done in 6 hours. And I've got this extra 2 hours to be more productive. Why is that? Is because when they're going into their meditation, they might be having what we call an active meditation. Their mind's having lots of thoughts and stuff like that. In Vedic meditation, we're not trying to control the mind or concentrate. So we allow those thoughts to be there. And it's actually when they come out of their meditation, that's when they start to experience a clarity, because in their meditation, they're thinking of their to-do list. They're thinking, got to get this done, get that done, do this, do that, do this. Actually, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm actually going to do this first, because then that would make that more productive and I could do that job a little bit easier. So they come out of their meditation and they've almost compartmentalized their complete day. They've structured their thoughts. So they come about doing their tasks, and they do a task. They're more present with doing that task. They complete the task. They move on to the next task and next task and next task. And they come to that sort of 6 hour mark. Like, I've done all my tasks. I've got 2 hours left of my day. Like, I could do that task, I could do this task, and they become more productive. Whereas without the meditation, they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, I gotta do this. They start doing that task and they're like, oh, fuck, I gotta do that task. Oh, do this task, do that task. And then they've get to 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they've got 10 tasks still open. They haven't completed any of them. It feels overwhelming and the ball starts rolling in a different direction for them. So that's one of the very common benefits I see of people coming to learn meditation. They initially kind of go twice a day, 20 minutes. But then that becomes very much, goes from like being a chore to very much something that they look forward to and they see the benefits of doing it. So I do see that with everybody. They're kind of like, oh, how do I do this? Incorporating it is different for everybody. You know, some people kind of... some people have a very structured routine where it's easier for them to implement the meditation. Some people, like parents, like, you know, yourself, like, you know, that can be chaos, you know, but there's still times to meditate. You mentioned it perfectly with yoga, you know, it's either 5 minutes or it's an hour, you know, and that can fluctuate from probably day to day. And that's also the same for meditation. Sometimes it will be 20 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 10 minutes. Sometimes it will be 1 minute, but that 1 minute of meditation is better than no meditation. So yeah, everybody incorporating it is slightly different. And that's my job as a teacher when I'm teaching them to like help them find that kind of, so yeah.
Okay, yep. And I'm sure there's nobody listening, same as myself, who can't be doing with 20 minutes of, you know, deep silence every day. So yes, it's about starting, just start, making the commitment to keep going with it, and then you're going to reap the rewards. You see the rewards, that open mind, clear mind to get on with your tasks. Could actually make you more productive. It's not about taking time away from your day. If anything, it could be adding it back in.
Exactly. Yes, very much so. Sometimes people kind of like, I haven't got time to sit in that silence and do nothing, but meditation is still an act of doing, you know, and you do see the benefits on the other side of it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So we kind of touched on the start. Ideal client, I'm fascinated with the whole psychology behind ideal client in business, like fascinated with it. So it is I've done a whole podcast episode on it, so I'm not going into it again today. I bet everyone at this point listens like, oh, here we go again. Right, okay, right, we're not going to go fully into it, but you have clearly identified your ideal client and the sort of gap in the market and ran with that for your business, and it's worked really well. Fantastic. You also said, which I would totally agree, you're not the sort of stereotypical meditation teacher. And your meditation is your sole focus, your only focus. It's not tagged on to any other sort of practice in the gym or yoga or anything. So has that been a conscious sort of misconception that you're trying to break down now that you've really got into it? I'm thinking about your recent Instagram post with all those crazy wellness industry sort of thing. There was talk of yoni sunbathing.
Google that yourself.
Absolutely. It's wild. So please, Google it yourself or have a look at Cam's Instagram just a couple of posts ago. All these sorts of real things that Cam had found that go on in the wellness meditation sort of industry space. So did you start out with wanting to sort of break this these common misconceptions, or or is it just something that's evolved as you've gone along when you allowed yourself to just be yourself in that space? Yeah,
totally. Like, look, believe me, because I've done many retreats and I've been in all these spaces. I've seen these things done. I've seen people having I've seen people having real conversations about that at retreats and those kind of spiritual wellness spaces. And you know what? If that's their thing, by all means, go for it. If that works for you, I'm happy for you. It doesn't work for me. And I know there's a lot of people behind the scenes also kind of like being like, what on earth they're talking about? And I remember being on retreats and kind of like saying something like, what the fuck is that? And people then afterwards going to me like, we were all thinking it, you said it. Like, and I thought that was like that. So I'm not just the only one in this space who's like, you know, thinking this sort of stuff.
I'm pretty sure some of those things you could get prison time for.
Oh, for
some
sure.
of the things that were in that
very
post
sure.
that were being recommended.
And I'm sure, you know, many years ago that was, you definitely get. So it, no, I think like when I first started to teach, that was definitely something that I wanted to kind of like break down the misconception. The initial one, and I've probably moved away from this quite a lot, is that, you know, you need to clear your mind in meditation. I probably spent like 3 years just talking about like, you do not need to clear your mind in meditation.
Is that about like feeling you need to be fit to go to the gym?
Exactly.
You need to be tan to go on holidays?
Exactly
kind
that.
Of thing? Yeah,
exactly
okay.
that.
Okay.
So I spent my first couple of years talking about that, but meditation has become much more mainstream over the last couple of years. And I've come away from that a little bit. But it's been more kind of definitely breaking down that kind of misconception of that you need to be this kind of you know, dreadlock wearing hippie pants kind of fluffy kind of person to meditate. And really it's about highlighting a lot of my students, because I have a lot of very, interesting characters come and learn meditation who are not that at all, So it's about highlighting them. And I think that helps then people who are viewing maybe my stuff on social media or whatever it is. They're like, oh, actually, that's just a normal person. That's just like me. So actually I can do meditation. I don't need to be that kind of, there's so many misconceptions about meditation or stereotype of what you need to be. But it is also making lighthearted banter on that sort of stuff, because
of course, each to their own, if that works for you and it's working for your students, crack on. Absolutely. But it was never something like you said at the start, you kind of almost were trying to fit into that space, and then it's been exhausting. Like it's so much better to just be yourself.
Totally.
And you're attracting the right people. Clearly, thousands of students around the world who are drawn into that.
Totally. I see all my courses now that I teach, I always kind of come away with a big smile, just kind of going like, I'm so fulfilled in teaching these people now. And it definitely is working out your ideal client and talking to them rather than talking to somebody else. It's
you
huge.
Figure that out, and it can change as business goes on, and that's fine. But you figure it out, and then when it comes to marketing, everything you're doing, you speak directly to them and no one else. That's it. It's actually, a lot of people think it's complicated to figure out and whatever, but it makes life so much easier.
So much easier. Work backwards. And every sort of
social media post you're doing, you're thinking about your copy for your website, anything at all, you just imagine you're speaking to that person that you want to be right in front of you.
Exactly.
So
and they just appear.
Sounds like you've cracked that.
Totally.
And then as well, men's mental health. I know from what I know, it's not always easy for men to come forward and speak and look at these things like meditation and whatnot, and especially if they are looking at, like we were saying, the kind of common stereotypical type of meditation. But I know straight away when you were saying the yoga mat round your head like a ninja. My husband's a big Ninja Turtles fan, like he's 41, and always has been and always will be. He would have related to that straight away. He'd be like, that's, if I'm going to try something like this, that's where I'm going. So are you making space there in male, like your client base, any sort of...
I would still say predominantly like maybe when I first started, probably 95% of my student base is women, because they're much more open to meditation. I would probably say it's come down to about 80% now, which is a big drop, you know, and a lot more guys are kind of coming to meditation. And that was something like over the last couple of years I've consciously tried to do, because it is exactly that, you know, the Ninja Turtles, like, you know, for example, in August, I've hired the Glasgow Planetarium and I've created an interstellar meditation, which there's been so many guys who've booked in for that because they love the movie Interstellar. You know, they love the Hans Zimmer soundtrack, and they're like, oh, the Glasgow Planetarium, that would be amazing. So they come to that, and then they start to see, like, actually, this is not what I thought meditation was. You know what? And then then it just kind of grows from there. So it is about creating other events and not just kind of like the predominant, like my teaching my courses. I often do other events, which attracts in and kind of makes it accessible for other people to come to meditation, that they just think it's not just the kind of yoga class that they need to go to. So yeah, it's definitely helped, and it's actually been really rewarding. In the last year, I've taught some courses which have been more males than women, and that has been really refreshing to kind of see that, because more guys are open to it now, which is amazing. But it is breaking down that stereotype as such. Yeah,
and I do often think that my husband is an amazing guy, an amazing husband, an amazing father. But I think I hear a lot of chat where women are expected to work like they don't have children, have children like they don't work and whatever, but it's also a very different environment for men now as well, where in the past men worked and that was kind of it, like they were pretty hands off in the house. Like my husband's the main chef. He does our meal plans and cooks most of our dinners and things. He looks after the kids. You know, we're 50-50 and everything, but he's still out working like in a really hands-on job as well. So it's a totally different life for men and women, and I really think we need to start looking at that, like, you know, and have more spaces that men feel comfortable. And the likes of the auditorium, planetarium, is that the Science Centre?
Yes,
that is awesome. It's awesome. That's going to be good. And that might feel a bit more anonymous for like a man who might felt intimidated, like you did at your first meditation class. A bit more anonymous. It's big, it's dark. So you could kind of slip in and try it.
Yeah, of course.
Without like a small intimate class where you might be a bit more noticed if you
very
were to
much
slip
so.
out. Yeah.
Very much so. It's and as well, like, having a personal approach for guys. You know, when I'm teaching an event or something like that, and it's just a standard sort of meditation event, there might be one guy who's kind of come along with his partner, and he's probably been dragged along. And I always like to make that effort to kind of go up to him and be like, mate, I feel you. Like, you've probably been dragged along, haven't you? And he's just a bit like, yeah.
I get that at photo
like,
shoots as well. Like, you don't want to be here, do
you
you?
don't want to, exactly. And I'm like, it'll be good, mate. You'll be good. I'll look after you, and that helps out a lot as well. So it is really, really nice to teach a lot more guys and open that space for them. And I would say definitely within the next sort of 5 to 10 years, it'll be much more mainstream. There'll be a lot more guys coming to meditation. And I truly do believe as well that in probably about 10 years time, maybe 5 to 10 years time, gyms will have like a mind space where you can go into like maybe a dark room or something and do some meditation, some breath work. And I think that will really kind of change the perspective for guys when it comes to meditation and doing stuff with your mind. So yeah.
Yeah, really important. Excellent. And you talked about the sort of goal of meditation as well. So there might also be a sort of common misconception. You think you're trying to change my mind, like, take over. Like, I don't, there's like some small business owners who are just literally looking for a bit of headspace. And I think often for us, it's about stepping back. You're so close to all the work, it can get really overwhelming. There's so much to do, it can get really overwhelming. A lot of businesses just simply don't survive because it is too much and the stress is too much. So small business owners sometimes are just looking for a little sort of reset, a little step back. What would be the sort of, from meditation, what do you think they could achieve from that then? So it's not about taking over the mind or changing. Is it about changing your thought process? I'm not sure. What actually is the goal?
Yeah, so the goal can be different for everybody. A lot of people come to learn meditation for many different reasons. It can be stress, anxiety, sleep, or whatever that is. So the goal can kind of change for different people. It's not always the same for everybody who comes to learn. Somebody might come to learn because maybe they've got heightened anxiety, and that's the initial reason they come to learn to meditate. But 6 weeks down the line of practicing regularly, that's actually when they start to go, actually, my anxiety's lifted here, but I'm so much more happier. I've actually quit my job and I'm actually working a job that I actually enjoy now, and it's given me a different perspective to look outwardly for that, because it gives them the space to kind of close the eyes, look internally, and get the answers internally. So it's different for everybody, but it's definitely important for small business owners hugely, because you're almost in kind of creation mode when it's your business, and you want to do the right things. You want to do them from a place that is like, this is my baby. I want it to be the right thing. And you can, as you said there, like the work can become quite overwhelming, and it's really important to kind of take a step back from that. Sometimes it can be quite overwhelming because we're so stressed out. We're so tunnel visioned of what's in front of us. We're stressed out about that. And meditation gives us a chance to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture and go, actually, I don't need to stress about that. This is okay, and I can work on this. That's not too bad. I can work on this. So it gives them the kind of more rounded scope or view of how their business is running, how they're feeling within their business, which then they can consciously kind of like change the perspective of where they're going with their business in that front. When it comes to you mentioned they're changing the mind as such, using thoughts. Yes, definitely. There's different styles of meditation where you can focus and niche onto that. There's different ones where you can niche onto calming your nervous system, releasing trauma. I don't like to kind of use that word because it's become a bit of a buzzword in the spirituality or the wellness scene, but that can be something you can also do. There's many different aspects you can do to kind of get a benefit or a goal out of doing meditation. So I don't know, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think so. Yeah. Just allowing you that sort of headspace to step back and step away, clear your thoughts, and as you say, you find most of your students in that position then can go back to work and actually find they achieve more. Because sometimes that's all it is, and it might be that you need a walk, or you just need to get out the house, but if you work from home, or whatever, or a practice like this to just take you away.
One thing I always kind of say to people on the initial introductory session and on the course to people, because as I said, I get a lot of people who are coming to learn because they're stressed, they're anxious, they can't sleep, whatever that is. And I always say the same thing to people. I say, don't look at meditation as being the cure or the answer to your problems, but look at it as being the first step into understanding a better version of yourself. And from there is where you can truly grow into what you want to be. So I think that kind of hits a nail on the head for a lot of people, because they're almost looking at it as a cure. And when you kind of take that pressure off it and kind of go like, okay, I can look internally here, and it opens up the whole perspective.
And I think a lot of people are looking for a quick fix, and it doesn't really exist for anything, for weight loss, for clearing the mind, for mental health, for anything. It really doesn't exist, doesn't it? Everything's a practice. And everything you need to be consistent with. In business as well, show up consistently, be consistent, Yeah, I think most things in life are the same.
Totally. It's just another tool in your tool belt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sometimes like just like a little reset in the day. So I'm not a great believer in waiting until Monday to start something or waiting to the new year. I generally start just now because that's, if I'm committed to it, then I want to start right now. But sometimes in the day, I just need like a reset. Is there any sort of very short meditative practice, like a breath work or something that I'm talking like a few minutes where you're just like, okay, the kids are wild, work's wild, I just need to zone out here for a minute. What sort of thing can you do if you've literally only got a couple of minutes that's in that meditation space?
Yeah, totally. There's so many.
Because we say it's better than nothing.
Yes, exactly. No, there's lots of meditation techniques you can kind of obviously do in that space. Obviously, Vedic meditation is a very good, beneficial one for doing that. If you had 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you could definitely do that, right, in that small space and get a lot of benefits out of that. It depends, again, like what you're feeling in that moment. There's lots of different mindfulness practices you can do. Breath work, there's a word that you kind of mentioned there. You could definitely do breath work to calm yourself within that space. If it's a little bit more, so it depends. If you're feeling stressed and like kind of like really overwhelmed, breath work might be quite good for you because that's almost using the breath to move that emotion and that stress out of your body. If it's something like you're overwhelmed about like the to-do list and the work and it's all kind of in your mind, Vedic meditation might be better for that because that allows you to almost kind of process and gives you that space to almost just close down the mental tabs so that you come out of the meditation feeling much more kind of like you've got the headspace as such. So I mean, there's lots. There really is lots. I could do a whole podcast on that. Or download the app.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to definitely download the app. So, is there any sort of anything you can show us just now, just a few seconds long, anything at all, live, exclusive on the Growth Addicts podcast?
I'll invoice you later on. So, without a doubt.
For the listener, Cam did say he was very happy to be put on the spot today.
I did.
So, anything at all in the moment. You don't need to do it for 5-10 minutes, but, just show us something that we can actually take away today and we could start today.
Yeah, so one technique that I give out a lot to all of my students on every single course, and it helped me profoundly a lot, right, is a simple breathing pattern, okay? Now, all it simply is, you could do this while you're talking to people. I could do this while I'm talking to you now. You could do it while you're talking to me. We could do this while we're, with the kids at work, in a work meeting, on stage, whatever it is. And all it simply is a normal breath in through your nose and a very slow, long, gentle exhale out through your mouth to the point your lips are hardly moving. And you're breathing out to the point you're almost emptying your lungs, right? Then again, it's just a normal breath in. And a very slow, long, controlled exhale out through your lips, sorry. And if you continue doing this, right, our inhale through our nose is associated with our excited nervous system. Okay. Our exhale out through our mouth is associated with our rest, repair, and recharge nervous system. So by making our exhale out through our mouth 2, 3, 4, even 5 times longer than our natural inhale, this starts to kind of balance out our nervous system, brings us out of that excited response into this much more relaxed space. So for example, I used to do this a lot as a carer and as a barista, both jobs. If I use a caring role, for example, I used to work with an individual. He was 6'4", 130 kilos. He was nonverbal autistic, and his way of telling people he was upset or he was angry is he would bite his hand and he would try and punch people. And he's obviously doing that because he's, feeling internally like, he's overwhelmed, or it could be anything. And in most cases in that, you'd have to kind of like leave the room, let him kind of calm down in his own space, which wasn't beneficial for him. But what was happening was, so you could see the early signs. He was getting agitated. He was about to kind of, blow off as such. And people would also be getting quite agitated and kind of like reacting, which just accelerated him so much quicker because he could see that reaction within them. Whereas when I worked with him, we created this really healthy relationship, and it all hinged on this, is because you could see the signs he was about to go. He was getting agitated. He was getting frustrated, whatever it was. And internally I could see that. So I would start to go... And you could see my shoulders probably starting to drop. My chest is starting to drop. My body language is telling him I'm not a threat. I'm calm. I'm composed, which would naturally or unconsciously tell him that. He could then communicate to me in a different way. I've got a sore stomach. I've got a headache. I don't want to watch this on telly. It could be something as simple as that, which he didn't then need to, kick off and blow out as such. And we created this really healthy bond. And don't get me wrong, there was some shifts where, I'd be working 12 hours with him and I'd be like, the whole way, you know, but it kept me calm, cool and composed, and it rubbed off on him as well. But also as a barista, you know, I could be making coffees and tickets, you know, people, and it's very overwhelming. And in those moments I can get really stressed and, and then make a mistake and coffee's everywhere, milk's everywhere, it's a mess, and it just kind of
So this is refreshing
spirals.
to hear you still have those moments as well.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Even though you are
Totally.
dedicated to your meditation practice to the point that you teach others, you still get moments you're like,
Totally. I'm not, meditation isn't, as I say, it's not a cure, you know, but it's another tool. So in these moments, like, as a barista, I would like catch myself, oh, I'm getting a little bit tense here.
I mean, you could do that in a scenario, someone's just like pissing you off, just pressing the button. You could do it without them even noticing. But the hope would be that they would also pick up. Like, you know, let's take this down a notch here because your tone's not loving it.
Totally with kids, you know, like coming back to that body language, like, you know, with that individual I worked with, it was in my body language that was telling him that unconsciously. And that's the same for kids. If the kids are kind of feeling overwhelmed and you're getting agitated as well, it just reflects and they're just picking up on your body language. But if you're calm and cool and composed, they then start to, you know, so it's that's without a doubt the best one. And as I said, like, don't get me wrong, I still do that. You know, sometimes I can feel myself like, ooh. Because I haven't got the time to maybe stop, drop and meditate, you know. I could be at Buchanan Street doing Christmas shopping. I've got time to sit there and drop and meditate.
Or this scenario could just be you're sat at your desk, there's a to-do list here, there's one pinned on the wall, there's another here, there's a sticky pad there with 5 things on it, and you're just... I can't go anywhere right now. I can't stop and do the full thing. I just need a reset, just a minute or two. Reset.
Totally.
There you go. That's
It's a very beneficial one.
First.
So I'll invoice you later.
Excellent. I'm definitely going to try that. When we will be paying good vibes, Cam.
Yes, exactly. I'm happy with that.
So something I definitely want to know, that we've talked a lot about these misconceptions and whatever, and the sort of things that you post and the sort of things that attract your ideal clients that they love. You must have a few unpopular opinions in the meditation world, in the wellness space.
Yes.
Fancy sharing one with us today?
I've got lots. Yeah, you know, you've brought the good questions for it. I like it. You have.
I really
took
like the brief and ran with it.
There is a lot. I mean, probably the thing I probably don't like about the wellness industry the most, I probably got to be quite careful the way I say this, because there could be people who obviously get upset, and that's fine, you know.
Deep breath.
So I would probably say the thing that probably upsets me the most about the wellness industry, I wouldn't say upsets, that's probably not the right way to kind of phrase that. The thing I like least about the wellness industry is how easy it is for people to get qualifications. Now, qualifications are, it's an interesting conversation, and there's a lot of tangents to this. Somebody can come and do a meditation session with myself. They could drop into one of my free sessions, right? And they go, oh, I really, really like this. Oh, I would like to do this as a job. And they then go online and they can do a quick qualification on a Sunday afternoon, a pre-recorded 4 videos, and get a standard automated certificate sent to them. And now they're a meditation teacher, right? And then they go off and they start going, I am a meditation teacher. I can teach meditation to everybody. And they maybe teach a few people to meditation. And those people maybe have adverse reactions of what happens in their meditation, and they're not in any way qualified to deal with that. Who was it? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Experience within your industry is huge.
And even like your caring job that you had, like sounds like you drew a lot of experience there from managing emotions, mixed emotions, people unable to tell you their emotions for one reason or another. Totally.
I think it's a really, really important. For example, my qualification as a meditation teacher was 3 years. I've got many, many tickets or qualifications within that 3 years. However, my final 3 months was an 1,800-hour qualification. The standard yoga teacher is 200 hours, and they teach meditation in that front. They've not got the experience of doing that. You know, I did some extensive meditation retreats, some for up to 4 months of meditating 15 hours a day. So I've got the experience of doing that and being in that space. Exactly. And many other meditation retreats and being in those spaces and experience that. So I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. Again, you could probably put it into the gym industry. And someone can go and do a personal trainer qualification, and the next thing is they're a personal trainer. They've never actually spent, and they're telling people how to build muscle. You would never take financial advice from someone who who's in debt. You would never take advice to almost kind of lose weight or build muscle from someone who's not living that life themselves. So I think this, when it comes to the wellness industry in a nutshell, is when people can quickly go and get a qualification. There's a conversation in the wellness industry that if they're helping one person, then they've done good. And I agree with that, but I also disagree, because that one person that they've maybe helped, they've maybe turned another 20 off of meditation, or 100, maybe 500 people, or actually made them worse from when they first started. And now they're turned off from meditation completely, or the wellness industry and the spirituality industry, because that experience that they had, and that person couldn't guide them through that. So I think it's really important that when people do get qualifications, that they actually have experience within it. I see it a lot in the wellness industry as well. And I was actually just thinking about this morning, because I've seen it on social media. Someone who's got like every single qualification under the sun in the wellness industry, and they're all those quick, buy the qualification on a Sunday afternoon, pre-recorded videos. And every week they've got a different offering. And I'm like, what is that? Like, where is that getting? Do you know what I mean? Is that of benefit? Do you know what I mean?
It's probably because they're trying to find their way. So jumping from one thing to another.
Totally. So I think that is probably the one thing I would say. It's the wellness industry isn't regulated within that, and anybody can come into that. Anybody can come into that scene. And I think there's a lot of people who are in the wellness industry who should be very far away from it, who have got bad intentions, which is, that's a big thing to say. And that's one of the biggest things with the wellness industry, because there's no one there to go, you're not,
financial industry, for example, governing body.
Yeah, I mean, for example, my teacher training, at the end of that 3 years, that 4 months of meditating 15 hours a day, spending a lot of money on that and devoting your life to it, there was a lady who got rejected. She was told, no, you're not at the standard to be a meditation teacher, and all of that training that she had done out the window, and she has to come back again either next year or not do it.
So that sounds as if that's as close to governance as you're going to get, as these proper.
Yeah, you need to be in experienced spaces to do that, and if you're not there to hold, if you can't hold that, then if you can't go through that process, then you can't hold that for somebody else. So, I think that's probably the one thing.
No, really, that's really good for our audience to share as well. I work with a lot of people in the wellness industry doing various different things, and I think they all feel the same. Sure, I've heard that. Without them, like you say, you need to be careful. You need to be careful what you're saying. Don't want to upset anyone. But as long as you're going in with the right intentions, which must be difficult, because it's still a business at the end of the day. But you have to just need to make sure you're qualified and experienced and able to carry out the job just like anything else, If it's something you want to make money from.
That's true.
That's true. Just like anything else, make sure you can do it.
Very much. I mentioned there, people kind of like, they came to the free session, and when they're like, oh, I like this meditation, I might become a meditation teacher. They like it, but having a business full-time and something you love changes your relationship to it. And I think that's something I've had to learn over the last couple of years. I love meditation, but there's been periods where I've gone, is this starting to affect my love for meditation? Because business and a love for something are very different, and you need to kind of be able to walk that line. And that can be a tightrope to walk.
With photography.
Yeah.
So photography was always a hobby, like from a very young age. Like I remember queuing in the chemist with my film.
Kodak.
So it was always a hobby. But without going into it, so I was diagnosed with PTSD after my wee boy wasn't well. But it's a whole other thing. But and I remember my doctor asking me, "What do you enjoy?" And I hadn't a clue at that point, because I told you anything you needed to know about epilepsy, but I didn't know myself at all. But anyway, had a think, and I was like, well, photography, I really enjoy taking photos, but not just taking photos. I love the whole editing process and whatnot as well. And she's like, take your camera everywhere. Take it everywhere, and I did. So it was like my business literally started from a doctor's orders.
I love that.
But I did worry that I would lose then the love for it, because I really loved it. Like I really loved it, and I loved not having any boundaries with it. So I eased into that very slowly and very carefully. And when I did start charging for shoots, it was, a fraction of the price, because I wasn't sure yet whether I was able to do this job. Qualified enough, because again, there's no governing body, there's no photography government's going to come down and say that photo's crap. Like, your just responsibility is to the client, and I always made it very clear where I was in that journey and what my experience was, completely upfront about it. But no, I did love it. I did love it. So it's working out well. And I just love working with businesses and these brands and just hearing their ideas. Like, I just love it. I could talk about it all day. And then being able to bring like their vision to life. Because sometimes you're like, this is what I'm thinking. But I mean, how does that look? Like, how do you translate that into your photography? Like, this is how.
Amazing.
So no, I do love it, so it's worked out. But I'm still careful though with the amount of work I take on for photography. I don't want to be snowed under to the point I'm like, I cannot be bothered editing that gallery. Like, I look forward to editing my client's gallery, so you do have to be careful of that, don't you?
Totally. Yeah, that's again something I've learned over the last couple of years, is taking on that workload of like what I can actually achieve with this before it starts to burn me out. And that definitely happens as a meditation teacher. There's been periods over the last 5.5 years where I have burnt out and kind of gone, I need to take a step back from this.
I imagine, because you're given so much.
Yeah, totally.
You have to make sure.
Yeah, definitely. When I first got with my girlfriend, like, you know, she's seen it, and it was like kind of coming home and just being like, right, I just need silence. I just need some quiet time, you know, because I've been speaking at people all day, or they've been speaking at me, and it's just like, I need some quiet time. So
it's me with the kids as well. Sometimes when John gets home and I'm like, please don't ask me any questions. Please don't ask me
quiet,
anything
dark room.
at all. Like, even when you get to the supermarket, you want a bag, I'm like, for fuck's sake, can nobody make their own decisions?
Totally.
Yeah, you're questioned out, you're touched out, you're probably needing meditation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're needing.
That's what you need.
Oh, excellent, Cam. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation there. I think there's lots. I have learned lots. I am definitely going to go, and I know where to find you on Instagram, but please tell us where we can find you overall. You mentioned your app, courses. Talk to us about where we can find you. If anyone here is listening and thinking, right, okay, I fancy scratching the surface of that, where can we find you?
Of course. Well, I imagine most people will be finding this conversation through social media, through Instagram. So Instagram, without a doubt, is the easiest way. My biggest traffic is Cam Cooney meditation. If you were in Scotland, you could quite literally go to Google and put in meditation Scotland, and I should pop up on the first page of Google. And if you're on an app store, you can just put in my name, Cam Cooney meditation, and my app will pop up as well.
This is very new.
Yeah, this is very new.
How's it going?
It's been good. It's been a smooth process the last week and 2 weeks, which has been godsend, because the last 6 months before
you must be now be like, what will I do with my time now?
Oh yeah, honestly, like I nailed the website, you know, 4 years after doing that, you know, and I finally found a space where I'm like, I know what I'm doing with the website now. And then going into the app world is just like a whole nother world. My world, you know, Apple Store, Android Store, there's so much jargon that I've just been like, I don't even know that the developers are talking at me and telling me these things, and I'm like,
it's like another language.
Yeah, literally. No idea. So I actually, this is actually a really good, maybe a nice story to kind of finish on. I actually had an app 2 years ago. So I actually had an app. My developers were Ukrainian, and we launched it on the 22nd of February 2022. And I thought, numerology, you know, it's perfect. The dates, everything aligns. It'll be perfect. New beginnings. And posted it. And within 6 hours of going live with it and moving my students onto it, Putin had invaded Ukraine. And literally 6 hours within it. And my developers, the idea was that I would have 5 developers who would work on a semi kind of 24/7 rota as such. And if there was an issue with the app, the student would ask me, I'd go to the developer fixed it, fix the student. And because there's always bugs and glitches with new apps and stuff like that, and it's a learning process. And within, as I say, they got all split up over all of Europe. And it was a really, really difficult phase, because I put my whole business on the line with this, and we went on with this, and for about 6 weeks I had no developers, and there was bugs and glitches, and at one point the app went from all English to all Ukrainian, and it was like it was a very difficult phase, and it was a hard conversation to have at the end of that. I think it was about 8 weeks later where I just went, I need to pull the plug on this, and that's a difficult conversation to have, to go like, I appreciate, like I remember the final Zoom call I had with them to tell them that, and halfway through it, they're like, we need to go. There's alarms going, there's sirens going off. We need to kind of evacuate. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like real life, stuff. You know, and it puts a lot of in perspective as well. You know, I'm over here struggling with my business, and this is making a huge impact and dent on my business. But at the moment, they've got their whole life turned upside down. So it was a big perspective, and it taught me quite a lot in that moment, where I kind of had to say to them, like, I appreciate, but I need to pull the plug on this. And for the next sort of, I would say 8 to 10 months, it was really difficult to kind of actually navigate that. And I felt a big dent in it and in my business. And
how did you manage that relationship with clients that you put onto the app?
Yeah, because I lost a lot because a lot of people went onto the app, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it onto my website. And then I had to pull the plug on that because I was like, I just need to go back. I just need to go back to how it was and just kind of like get the boat floating again. And there was a lot of people who were obviously in that phase, that couple months, who just went, it's not worth the hassle. And I completely understand where they're coming from.
Affected your reputation then.
And now I've still got students who were there with me in that process, and they have a fucking amazing spot in my heart because they have seen it all. Do you know what I mean? And so it was building it up, and I always said I'm not going to do an app again until I'm ready. And I thought January time, December time it was last year, I thought, I think I'm ready in the new year. And I started again, and it was certainly headaches.
It's
certainly
out there in the world.
Yeah, totally.
And what can we find on your app then?
Yeah, so a complete on-demand library, the 9D meditations that you spoke about, that you came to the event.
And you don't need the headphones then?
You will need the headphones.
Oh, you do?
Not the headphones you used at my event, your own headphones. So you'll be able to do them at home. Live classes, an on-demand library, my chat feature, tracking, leaderboards, stuff like that. Nice. So it's predominantly built for students of mine who have already done the Learn to Meditate course. They get most benefits from it. However, those who have not done that can also get a lot of benefits from doing it. So that's the
So if we're just starting out, we find you on Instagram or your website then. If we're just totally new to meditation and want to have a wee peek behind the door and sit at the back, we can find you on your website. That's where we can find that kind of thing.
Perfect. So thank you for bringing me on. I appreciate it, and it's been nice to have a refreshing change of questions on our podcast. So thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome. Thank you for your time. I know your time is precious. Thank you so much for spending it with me today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all of our listeners do as well.
Thank you.
We've learned covered loads of subjects there, so I'm looking forward to actually listening to it myself and make some notes.
Definitely.
Not me. I usually, when I'm in my dining room, I'm making notes, but because we're in the fancy studio today, I've not been making notes. So thank you so much. We will find you, Cam. Best of luck with your business going forward. You're doing fantastic work. Your business is thriving. So please just keep doing what you're doing because we're loving it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hi.
Perfect.
There you go.
Amazing.
Did you enjoy it then?
Yeah, I did. That was amazing. I love those questions in there. I was like, ooh, spicy one.
Oh, spicy one.
I was like, oh, so much I could say here. And I was like, oh, how viral do I want this to go? So, no, it was good.
Excellent.
It was very refreshing for me to do that.
Yeah,
so
me too.
That flew by, literally flew by
that hour.
An hour on the dot.
Oh, so it is there, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see the time anyway.
I know. So,
there you are. I must be having there in my head. Excellent. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of people who get a lot out of that.
Good.
Really good to hear your kind of behind the scenes story, I feel, because we're just on Instagram and whatnot. Obviously, we're seeing your meditation and whatever, but not the business side, not the business, like starting a business in a new country, starting a business in a totally different, like from a tradesman to a meditation teacher.
Contrast,
loads there. So thank you very much. And genuinely, like the little breath thing, like I genuinely do need that.
Yeah, true. Definitely give that a shot. Give that a shot. You'll see a huge difference in it. You don't need to do it for like a certain amount of time. You can do it for as long as you want. As I said, like, it was like 8-hour shifts there where I used to do that, and it was like. So, I think you get a lot from it.
Whenever I've been to Costa or anything like that, it does look absolutely mental.
Yeah, true, totally. I always feel for them. I'm always that extra bit nicer to a barista after working that job for sure.
Doing it yourself. Oh, amazing. So, I love that.
No, I'm glad.
Here's the other Cam.
The other Cam.
That was awesome. So it's going to be out on 15th of the month, generally. So I'm only doing monthly just now. You will be the last episode of season 1. So the grand finale, if you will.
Perfect.
And then season 2 is just going to start in August, but I'm going to do twice a month from there.
Cool.
So I'll up it a little bit because I'm loving it.
Yeah, good.
Again, just like we spoke about, went into it blind, didn't know if I would enjoy it, if I'd be any good at it. I'm loving it. I'm loving more than anything the guests I'm getting to meet. It's so good.
Of course.
So yes, this one will be mid-July.
Good.
I'll just send you. You were keen in the video. I'll just send you the
raw
video file, and you can chop it up and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, that's what you should do. Is just chop it up and